Hello, family. How are you all? A warm-hearted welcome to all of you. In the previous video, I have discussed what is tragedy and some features and types, and also the features of a tragic hero. In this video, I am going to discuss comedy, its origin, and types of comedy. Though I haven't shared all the types because there are many types of comedy, I have shared some important types of comedies which are very much important in literature. Maybe it can be helpful for nature too. So I would like to request you to listen carefully till the end of the video. Uh, Before the discussion, if you are new in my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and support. Your subscription and like and share will add more charms on me to it help me to think more for my channel and for my videos. So let's start our discussion. The word comedy has been derived from the French word comédie, which in turn is taken from the Greco-Latin word commedia. The word commedia is made of two words, comos, which means revel, and aidien, means to sing. In common literary usage, a work, particularly a dramatic work, which is designed to amuse and divert through its depiction of everyday characters and situations and delivery of a happy resolution as a genre. However, comedy encompasses every form and may be found in both prose and poetry. Comedy type of drama or other art from the chief object of which, according to modern notions, is to amuse. It is contrasted on the one hand with tragedy and on the other hand with farce, burlesque, and other norms of humorous amusement. Look, actually, the main aim of comedy is not to only create fun or make fun, only to produce fun. Actually, its main aim is to present a mirror in front of society, to show them their follies, to rectify their follies. The classic conception of comedy, which began with Aristotle in ancient Greece of the 4th century BC and persists through the present, holds that it is primarily concerned with humors as social beings rather than as private persons, and that its function is frankly corrective. The comic artist's purpose is to hold a mirror up to society to reflect its follies and vices in the hope that they will, as a result, be mended. I have already said. Aristotle, in his Poetics, states that comedy originated in phallic sons and that, like tragedy, it began in improvisation. The giant of Greek comedy is Aristophanes. Other important playwrights of old comedy include Cratinus and Eupolis. Greek comedy would continue to be popular through Hellenistic and Roman times, with many of the classic plays being re-performed again and again. Latin comedies were written most famously by Plautus and Terence, and the genre diversified into various other forms of comic theatre such as pantomime and toccata. I'd like to mention which was the first comedy in English literature. Maybe it can be helpful for Netset also. The first comedy written in English literature was Ralph Roister Doister by Nicholas Udall. On another part also, I'd like to come with Ralph Roister Doister. So now let's discuss the characteristics of comedy. One of the characteristics of comedy is that they are typically light-hearted and have a positive or optimistic outlook. They often deal with problems in a light-hearted way and end with everything resolved. Comedies are usually designed to make audience laugh, but they can also be used to deliver a message or teach a lesson. The second key characteristics of comedy is that they often contain humor that is derived from familiar situations. This allows audiences to laugh at the absurdity of the situation while also providing a sense of recognition. In many cases, the humor is based on the contrast between what is expected and what is actually happens. So this can create a sense of suspense and surprise, which are essential elements of comedy. The third key characteristic of comedy is that they tend to have a happy ending. This is often seen as a way to balance out the comedic elements with a feel good conclusion. It can also be a way to provide a sense of closure for the audience after they have invested time in the characters and the story. The fourth characteristics of comedy is that the plots are often simple and straightforward. This is because comedies are designed to be entertaining and easy to follow. The simpler the plot, the easier it is for the audience to understand what is happening. Additionally, the simpler the plot, the more likely it is that the audience will find the story. The fifth characteristics of comedy is that they can be enjoyed by peoples of all ages and cultures. Comedies often make light of current events, which makes them enjoyable for people who are looking for a break from the serious news. Like when one will read Macbeth, there Shakespeare used comic reliefs to bring the audience out from a deep, sad moments. Like they will enjoy, they will actually enjoy the comic scene. Then again, the tragic scene will help them to go into deeper. There will be that can be helpful in comedy, in tragedy also. So, and it can be a mirror too. The sixth important features of comedy is that they often have larger than life characters that are funny and relatable. These characters are often placed in absurd situations that add to the humor of the film or show. The characters in comedies often have very different personalities, which can create interesting conflicts and situations. The humor in comedies often comes from the character's reaction to this situation. Actually, like how in tragedy also there will be the hero will be from a upper class background or moral background, virtual background. Here also the comedic comedian characters often placed also from the larger than life characters. So now let's discuss types of comedy. Though I haven't discussed all types of comedy because it is impossible for me to discuss all types of comedy. Here are some types of comedy which I have discussed. So let's see. First, I have discussed the romantic comedy. The romantic comedy or the comedy of romance and humor is often used to describe the type of comedy which Shakespeare used. This is the type of play which imaginatively creates an idyllic world replete with young lovers, stern but ultimately understanding parents, a pleasant natural setting, and imaginative language, young lovers, freshness of youth, settings in heart of exotic forests, action and speech that are basically not realistic, glamour of courts, magnificence, and all these sometimes spliced with supernatural elements. These are the standard elements that go to make romantic comedy. Such in Shakespeare's As You Like It or A Midsummer Night's Dream or Twelfth Night. So the elements of the romantic comedy can be seen clearly in the honorable history of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay by Robert Greene, who in his days tried to run down Shakespeare out of professional jealousy. Shakespeare streamlined this type of comedy and brought it to a level of sophisticated perfection using kindly and good natured fun, romantic love of young lovers, sometimes purely partial characters, uh, and scenes, supernatural creatures like fairies behaving just like human beings, and of course the triangular love conflict with everything ending with marriage bells, enchanting songs, and sometimes masks and dances added to the entertainment value of such comedies. The romantic comedy takes us in the world of dreams where nothing is impossible. The fanciful and the real may barely be separated, and our senses are dulled under the spell of charmed magic casements of actually opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Shakespeare, with the instinctive artistic taste, has made, as Allardyce Nicole put it, the romantic comedy has to show an exquisite balance between the reality and the ideal in characters, in speech, in action. So now another type of comedy is comedy of humors, which actually critics have a tendency to let on to philosophical, medical, or psychological theories to justify their points of view in relation to literary values. Coleridge brought in a lot of metaphysical speculation to bear upon literary activities, and even in modern times, philosophy and psychology play an important role in certain literary theories. Such is the situation in the case of comedy of humors. The medieval theory of humors was already out of date in the days of Ben Jonson. The actually, according to the old Greek and Latin medical theory, the human body possessed four humors or liquids: flame, blood, color, and melancholy. The predominance of any one of these four humors in temperament, choleric people are easily angered, and melancholy would imply depressive temperament. In the later part of the 16th century, humor had come to mean a man's characteristic disposition or obsession or mania. In the comedy of humors, the character is completely dominated by a single obsession. Johnson believed that he could get maximum humor and satire out of a situation if he showed human beings dominated by humors or obsession or ruling passions or dominant traits of characters. Johnson initiated this in the introduction to his play Every Man Out of His Humor. In The Alchemist also we find unbounded lust, unlimited credulity in the foolish Fritzlottrell is found in The Devil is an Ash. In Volpone also we find the cunning Volpone and Mosca over reaching themselves in their contempt for their victims. In other words, Johnson's characters are stock characters, which are in fact not uncommon in the comic plays of those days. The comedy of humors actually doesn't depend upon humor, it uses satire also to create its effect. It could in reality better be called the comedy of realism or the comedy of satire. Another type of comedy is the comedy of manners. Comedy of manners is commonly used phrase in literary criticism, but its meaning is not always clear. After Puritanic upsurge of austerity, Charles II came to throne of England and he brought French manners, French courtiers and French morals along with him. In his court, witty remarks and flippancy passed for cultured sophistication, and fashions of dress and manners were considered all important in the aristocratic, gay, carefree, immoral upper class society. The plays of those days reflect the aspirations and manners of that society. This term particularly applies to Restoration comedies written by Congreve, Wycherley, Ethergy, and others. Comedies of Chardin, Oscar Wilde are also comedies of manners. The comedy of manners usually set in a highly sophisticated society and the main characters are usually very witty and lax in moral tone. The situations are very often farcical and vulgar and its humor is mainly verbal. The characters are people of fashion. The theme is usually love, intrigue, and the dialogue, mainly on superficial topics, is brilliantly witty. So much were the writers obsessed with the idea of witty laughter that they never worried about the theme that gave rise to such laughter. Like, many of us have read The Way of the World by William Congreve, where we have seen that there is a actually cultural view also that to become rich, many actually low class, middle class, lower middle class, or middle class or lower class people also married to a higher class lady to become rich, to become fashionable, like the king. And though there was a rule that only when the consent of the parents will be there on that marriage, only then the property will be given to the husband. Not neither the property will not be given, but that image also portrayed there, which was there also. So it can be very much seen. So the most noteworthy writers of the comedy of manners are William Wycherley and Congreve. Conclaves, The Way of the World is as famous as Rachel is the country wife and the plain dealer. The sentimental comedy is another type of comedy. The sentimental comedy presents a reaction against the loose morals and general cynicism of the Restoration comedy. Of course, during the last decades of the 17th century, so popular were the comedies of manners and their imitations that there was no room for new types of plays in the existing theatres in England. The comedy of sentiment emerged as a serious rival of the comedy of manners. Sir Richard Steele is one of the creators of the sentimental comedy. The sentimental comedy was an attempt to prove that virtue and innocence also could be entertainingly attractive on stage, and vulgarity and wit are not necessarily the only source of the stage laughter. Steele attempted to make comedy respectable again. In actuality, the sentimental comedy became the least humorous of dramatic forms. Its main ingredients were domestic situations and innocent love. It aimed at exciting the gentle emotions in the audience and proving the triumph of sheer goodness. Yet, this type of comedy became popular for the time being because the desire for a less immoral theatre was indeed widespread. The conscious lovers of steel is such a comedy underlying the devotion to morality and virtuous view of love. So, actually, this type approach is not healthy for pure comedy. Okay, because for a comedy, there will be witty statement, which is very much essential. In tragedy also there will be witty statements, and in comedy also there will be witty statements, which are very much essential. So next type is the dark type or the black comedy. The dark comedy or black comedy. There are a number of plays which are called comedies, but actually these type of comedies were drawn into a part of comedy or as a uh, actually they were brought right because their features were not like completely like comedy. They were like tragedy, but at the ending is like comedy. So other sides were not actually similar. So plays like Shakespeare's Winter's Tale or Measure for Measure or T.S. Eliot's The Cocktail Party can be called comedies, but they were called comedies because any other apt nomenclature didn't fit them. Such plays ended happily but were more tragic than comic. The general tone of the play lacked the spontaneous laughter and had a mixture of tears and laughter. Hence, the critics came out with labels like tragicomedy or comic tragedy. Professor J.L. Stein has Professor J.L. Stein has used the name the dark comedy for such plays, and that phrase has become too quite popular to label the type of plays like Measure for Measure, Troilus and Tragedy, etc. Those plays contain at times serious discussions of problems, and the playwrights like John Osborne, famous was Look Back in Anger, or Moyler's The Tariff was his work, also famous work, or Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, or Shaw's Mrs. Warren's profession also contain this dark side of the comedy. So this is, and then another type is farce. In farce, actually, it is we may not get the best type of humors, nor does it appeal to defined audiences. It is rough. Farce is rough, crude, almost elemental in its desire to evoke laughter. In farce, laughter is mainly evoked by physical actions, absurd situations, and poor plot construction. The situations in a farce are exaggerated and very often impossible. Just think a husband pursuing his wife's chastity while her lover is hiding under the bed. Just think about the situation. We find rude and coarse, incongruity, and characterization is deliberately sacrificed to situation. Sheer horseplay cause laughter. Bottom's antics and the episodes of Primus and Thisbe in a Midsummer Night's Dream are partial. But an elemental force can be found even in number of better comedies, recent comedies, and even in the comedies of Shaw. Another type is comedy of intrigue. Comedy of intrigue, where or situation comedy, is a term comedy is sometimes used by critics to define play in which humor depends mainly upon intricate plotting, hairbreadth escapes, and rapidly changing situations. Of course, most of the types of comedies have all these characteristics, and it is difficult to find a pure comedy of intrigue. Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest and Oliver Goldsmith's Cease to Conquer have quite a few traits of the comedy of intrigue along with the traits of the comedy of manners. Fletcher's play have preponderance of the element of intrigue or situations in them. Such comedies have little humor, no wit or satire. They depend upon external sources of laughter. There is another type of comedy which is comedy of menace, which denotes a kind of play in which one or more characters feel that they are threatened by some obscure and frightening force, power or personality, etc. The fear and the menace become a source of comedy, albeit laconic, grim, or black. Harold Pinter, among others, exploited the possibility of such situation in such plays. The birthday party and the dumb waiter, etc., are the examples of this kind of comedy. Then there is another kind of comedy also, that is comedy of morals, which is actually satirical comedy designed to ridicule and correct vices like hypocrisy, pride, avarice, social pretensions, simony, and nepotism. Molière is the supreme playwright in this genre. Ben Jonson and Shaw are other notable instances. So I'd like to stop here because the video is already too long and I don't want to make too long like this right now. So I'd like to stop here. If you are new in my channel, I am again requesting you, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and support. And if you have any question regarding this topic, please feel free to ask. I'll try to give you answer in my next video or in the comment section also. So tata, bye bye, take care all.